The Memory of Love, Chapter 38. Adrian reaches Elias Cole's room at 4:15. 15 minutes late. A downpour and an overflowed gutter halted traffic in the streets. He'd stopped by his apartment for a change of clothes. On the door of the old man's room hangs a laminated sign, "No visitors." He stops short with his hand upon the doorknob, hesitates, and withdraws it. Then he turns and walks away. Chapter 39. The young man shifts in his chair and surveys his feet. His voice is almost inaudible. The others, seated in the circle of chairs, watch him, as if from a distance. Here, he taps the side of his head. They put it inside your head. Afterwards, you are powerful. You do battle. On the cheekbone below his temple is a series of short, thick, keloid scars. His name is Soleil. Ileana had given Adrian Soleil's records before the start of the session. A government soldier turned rebel. He'd then been recruited back into the army as part of a new deal. It had not worked. In a second shakeup, Soleil had been discharged. He'd worked as a security guard, but failed to hold on to any of his jobs. Soleil had a prolonged history of violence and erratic behavior, and also suffered agonizing headaches, which he claimed were due to the drugs he'd been given. Adrian doubted the two were connected, though the fact made the migraines no less real. "What was the last dream you had?" The young man shakes his head. It is slow going, a shuffling, and a snorted laugh from somebody in the room. "Adekali." "Yes," says Adrian, turning to look at Adekali. He is becoming used to the laughter now, strange and surreal. It permeates so many moments, not just in the hospital, but outside. A memory of Mama Kay comes to him, as one seems to every few minutes, of her translating for him a phrase he'd heard and not understood. It means, "I fall down, I get up again." When somebody asks how you are, perhaps you cannot honestly answer that you are fine. That is what it is saying. Grim humor. Adrian pulls himself back to the present. "What is it, Adekali? What do you want to say?" He hollers for his mama. He jumps out of his bed. Adekali suffers nightmares too. Also, incontinence. He has a terror of fire, of the wicks of oil lamps, matches, lighters. Nobody knew precisely from where his stemmed, and Adrian wonders what memories fire brings back to Adekali, who also suffers from a complex combination of twitches and asthma. Mama. Of the 4 patients in the room, he appears the most outwardly deranged. "Would you like to talk about any of your dreams?" Adrian finds the session demanding. By the end, he is exhausted. He is also exhilarated. It is what he has longed for. Adekali drops his gaze and shuts his mouth. "We are here to listen and to help each other." They are nothing if not compliant. Boys still. Their commanders had taken the place of their parents, and now they look to Adrian. None had questioned the purpose of the sessions, or considered their right to attend or not. They did as they were told, as they always had. Now, the effort of attempting to obey causes Adekali to knit his brow. "I dream. It is such that I am afraid to sleep. But it makes no sense. Sometimes in the day they come, sometimes by night." His fingers work upon his forehead. "Sometimes I smell something that is not there." "Take your time," Adrian urges Adekali on, careful not to push the pace too much. What is it you smell? I smell roast meat. I hear screaming and banging. And then I smell roasted meat. In the afternoon, Adrian has a meeting with Attila. He makes his way to the man's office, forces himself to drop his shoulders, to take deep breaths of the sea-dampened air, and walks on past the ornamental palms, the edges of whose great leaves move in the wind, creating a rattling sound which reminds him, as it did the first time, of the spinnakers of yachts as the quay in Norwich. High in the sky, a pair of vultures wheel on the rising currents. 5 minutes later, he is in the seat opposite Attila. Attila leans far back into his chair, elbows on the table, fingers laced, considering Adrian from beneath hooded lids. He loves a game of cat and mouse, thinks Adrian. Still, it was true to say that though the chief psychiatrist had more or less ignored Adrian, he'd also given him the free run of the hospital, had not hampered his efforts. Adrian clears his throat and begins to speak, describing the sessions, their nature, the patients he'd selected to attend, and the reasons for those choices. His choice was heavily determined by whether or not they spoke English, something he does not mention now. Attila listens in silence. When Adrian has finished, he waits for Attila's response, noticing for the first time the glossy darkness beneath the other man's eyes. Despite the robustness of his physique, he looks exhausted. Attila leans across and moves a pen a few inches across his desk, shifts a paper or two. It is all an act, thinks Adrian. This ponderousness. Attila is sly and quick and clever. He is dedicated to what he does. Nobody else would do this job. Adrian likes him. He wishes he could tell him so. What do you aim to achieve with these sessions? The cat pawing the mouse. To return the men to normality, to some degree of normality, so they can live their lives, achieve everything anyone else could expect to achieve. And what is that? What is it they can expect to achieve? To hold down a job, to enjoy a relationship, to marry and have children. Attila nods his head briskly. Suddenly he places his palms flat on the table and pushes himself up. I have to attend a meeting at the health ministry. Why don't you ride along with me? Adrian, who has things he could do, though nothing that could in any way be called urgent, senses this is a moment to comply. It is in the interest of his relationship with this awkward, heavy man. Of course, Adrian follows Attila out, waits while he selects a key from a large bunch and locks his office door, then follows him to the front entrance of the hospital. Attila eases his bulk behind the wheel of his car. Adrian slides into the passenger seat. They pass through the center of town, past the turning to the old department store. It is hot and Attila's car does not have air conditioning. Adrian feels the sweat on his shirt and the back of his thighs. Now they are away from the grid of roads. The traffic moves more freely here. A light breeze enters the vehicle. Adrian might have been relieved, except the breeze carries with it a foul odor of rotted fish and the high, sweet smell of sewage. The road leads sharply downhill. Tin hats reach out in either direction, an endless landscape of rusted tin. On the right is the sea, not the green-blue sea visible from the campus, but water the color of shit. Attila slows the car. Neither of them had spoken during the drive. Now Attila says in a conversational tone, "A few years back, a medical team came here. They were here to survey the population." He pulls over, applies the handbrake, and looks out of Adrian's window like a tourist pausing to appreciate the view. Ahead of them, two shirtless men labor to push a cart loaded with scrap metal up the hill. Their bodies are lean and muscled, glowing with sweat and sun. A filthy dog, with perhaps the worst case of mange Adrian has ever seen, trots across the road. There are people moving in, out, and around the huts. The rush of air as a cart passes brings a fresh gust of the terrible smell. Do you know what they concluded? Adrian shakes his head. Attila has said neither who the researchers were nor indicated the purpose of the study. They were here for 6 weeks. They sent me a copy of the paper. The conclusion they reached was that 99% of the population was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. He laughs cheerlessly. Post-traumatic stress disorder. What do you think of that? Adrian, who is entirely unsure what is expected of him, answers. The figure seems high, but strikes me as entirely possible from everything I've heard. When I ask you what you expect to achieve for these men, you say you want to return them to normality. So then I must ask you, whose normality? Yours? Mine? So they can put on a suit and sit in an air-conditioned office? You think that will ever happen? No, says Adrian, feeling under attack. But therapy can help them to cope with their experiences of war. This is their reality. And who is going to come and give the people who live here therapy to cope with this? Asks Attila and waves a hand at the view. You call it a disorder, my friend. We call it life. He shifts the car into first gear and begins to move forward. And do you know what these visitors recommended at the end of their report? Another $150,000 to engage in even more research. He utters the same bitter chuckle. What do you need to know that you cannot tell just by looking, eh? But you know these hotels are really quite expensive. Western rates, television, minibar. He looks across at Adrian. Anyway, he continues, you carry on with your work. Just remember what it is you are returning them to. It is as close as he has ever come to praise. Attila drops Adrian off outside the government building and walks away, leaving Adrian standing in the car park. As he makes his way to the main road to hail a taxi, he considers Attila's words. He recalls the conversation with Kai 2 months ago now, after the attack by Agnes's son-in-law. This is our country. He was rejecting Adrian's offer of help. It was this that had stung so much. The idea he was neither wanted nor needed. It had simply never occurred to him. Attila, the man, is right, of course. People here don't need therapy so much as hope. But the hope has to be real. Attila's warning to Adrian. I fall down. I get up. Westerners Adrian has met despise the fatalism, but perhaps it is the way people have found to survive. Saturday. The air is so still. The wood smoke from cooking fire leaps vertically into the air. The clouds are unmoving in the sky. Everything is quiet. No traffic on the roads. Even the birds are silent. Adrian is sipping coffee on the veranda of Mama Kay's upstairs neighbor. I should be going, he says, meaning the opposite. He wants to know whether she is available for the rest of the day. You can't, he smiles. Can't I? He asks teasingly. Why not? And she answers, no, I mean you really cannot go. It is cleaning Saturday. What does that mean? It means you have to stay in until midday to clean your yard. Nobody is allowed on the streets except to clean them. He has never heard of it before. Mama Kay explains. One of the juntas introduced the cleaning days, their first act in power, by making everyone clean their neighborhood. On the last Saturday of the month, they transformed the city. The optimism was short-lived. In the years that followed, the capital was sacked twice. Still, cleaning Saturdays survived, and that was something. What can I do? I was out this morning before you woke up. The, the quiet, the absence of traffic on the roads is explained. Now that they are trapped here for 2 hours, Adrian fetches his sketchbook and pencils. He plans to sketch a view of the dovecote, but instead he begins to sketch Mama Kay's profile as she sits with her back to the morning light. He has not attempted a human figure since his days at school. But Mama Kay is unself-conscious, does not stiffen or attempt to arrange herself into a more formal or flattering pose. Indeed, she is not bothered to pose at all, and moves as she pleases. Adrian draws freely, a series of small, rough sketches, attempting to capture the curve of her spine, the swell of muscle at the back of her thighs, the line of her heel. Baba Gale tells me you spent time with my father. She is sitting on the armrest of the sofa watching him. Adrian draws the line from Mama Kay's chin to her collarbone. That's right. What does he want? To talk. She nods, rests her chin upon her arm, and switches her gaze out over the balcony. There had always been uncertainty in Adrian's mind about the exact nature of his relationship with Elias Cole. Elias had never identified a specific problem or asked for help. He certainly did not seem to suffer any neuroses a long time ago, almost from the start. Adrian had given up treating Elias as a case or even a possible case. He kept clinical notes because he felt it was the least that was required of him. Elias seemed to him to be a lonely man in search of a peaceful death. Adrian might have been priest, imam, counselor, or layman. What did the Baba Gale say? He asks. Nothing. Really? He is a secretive soul. He has learned to hold his counsel, like everyone else. What do you mean? Have you never noticed how nobody ever talks about anything? What happened here? The war, before the war. It is like a secret. Adrian remembers his early patients, or would-be patients, their reluctance to talk about anything that had happened to them. He put it down to trauma. Since then, he has grown to understand it was also part of a way of being that existed here. He had realized it gradually, perhaps fully only at this moment. It was almost as though they were afraid of becoming implicated in the circumstance of their own lives. The same is true of most of the men at the mental hospital. Questions discomfit them. Remembering, talking. Mama Kay is right. It's as though the entire nation are sworn to some terrible secret. So they elect muteness, the only way of complying and resisting at the same time. All except Elias Cole. The thought strikes him for the first time. On the paper, the line of penicillin loses its way and tapers off. All except Elias Cole. Adrian frowns, his head still bent to the paper. Mama Kay is speaking. He looks up. Sorry, what? I asked how your drawings are. Oh, fine, I think. Yes, I'm quite pleased. You are easy to draw. Does that sound foolish? Perhaps it does. No, says Mama Kay. It does not, though I cannot draw. My mother could draw plants. She was a botanist. What was your home life like? My parents weren't especially close. I was the go-between. I remember outings with my mother and outings with my father. I don't remember any outings with my mother and my father. My mother kept to herself a lot, though she would sometimes take me to collect specimens. I used to dry my own flowers. I had a little press and everything, but I did not like the way the press's flowers looked. The color and life all gone from them. My father, he took me to Sunday school and told me stories. He talked to me about history. Is that why you chose history? Yes. When I was older, I was allowed to help with his research, fetching books from the library and marking the relevant pages. It made me feel very important. He took me to the archives at the university. We would discuss subjects, whatever he was writing about. I guess I wanted to please him, as little girls do. But you never finished your degree. No. Adrian waits for Mama Kay to continue, but she does not. For the second time, Adrian has a sense of something unspoken. Mama Kay breaks her pause and stands up to lean over the balcony. It occurs to him that he has barely even seen her at the hospital, only that once, talking with Baba Gali. He's never seen her visit her father, though imagines she must do. She turns to face him, her back to the light. He cannot read her expression. It's midday, she says. We are free.